one time I came up here in the winter, and this was all snow.
Oh, it's so smoky.
And you see the guardrail right there? There's all snow there. And there was a few people set up to shoot the Milky Way because the Milky Way core rises right here. And it was so funny because I walk right past them, and I had my alpine harness on, and I anchored to something. I can't remember what it was. And I like walk all the way out on this snow cornice. These people are just watching me like in complete shock and awe. And then I posted my Milky Way pano because I ended up shooting a huge panorama here. And the next day I posted it, and it turned out it was actually somebody that did follow me. And they were like, we were wondering who the crazy person was. Just Matthew Newman doing his thing. This spot here too, first time I ever snow camped here at Crater Lake. Ben Kaufman and I snowshoed all the way out here. And it was a beautiful night when we got here. It was calm and clear, and probably around 10 o'clock that night the wind was blowing like 20 miles an hour. I ended up cowboy camping. These trees over here it was all pretty much buried in snow, so it was just the tops of these trees, and I was cowboy camped like right under one of those trees as a windbreak. Ben Kaufman tried to set up his tent. He forgot his snow stakes. So his tent was just shaking around all night long. He actually wound up picking up in the morning, like when we got up, I wake up and he had taken his tent and there was a rut in the snow next to the vault toilets, and he had set his tent up right next to the stinky vault toilets. I'm just like, dude, just cowboy camp. Just cowboy camp. And on the way out, he had brought a 6-pack of beer in his backpack, and one of the cans ruptured, and so he had beer all over all of his layers once we got out here, and so all of his layers were beer soaked, and he had planned on staying out here for a couple of nights. He wound up just bailing. We were like, yeah, we're done after this. But we came over this corner, kind of where I was set up, where these people freaked out, and Ben actually got like an award-winning picture that night, despite how miserable the experience was.
It's always an award-winning picture.
But it was awesome because there was a 10% crescent moon, like right in the core, and so it was reflecting off of the water. It was badass.
Oh wow, it's clearing up a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
That looks freaking epic.
It's pretty rad. I mean, yeah, it's smoky up here. It's not fun to breathe, but whatever. It's moody. I like it.
I love it. Look at that.
Yeah, I'm down to go up there. It's not windy. So.
Wow. What do we think? Looks pretty close.
Let's go for 15 minutes.
15 minutes, huh?
You say that as I plan not to carry anything except for my phone.
The G. Everything except the freaking Canon G whatever.
Oh, actually, yeah, I could take the G7 next.
And the tabletop tripod.
Yeah. Maybe I will pick that up there. That goes in my pocket.
Think we could do it.
Yeah, it's kind of clearing.
Oh.
Land speed records.
Didn't set any speed records?
No. The 1933. Not bad with your stops for some photos. So the night I almost froze to death up here. I slept, this was all snow. I slept in this little spot right here.
Huh.
And because it was the only part of the building that gave me any windbreak. So
Yeah,
I was cowboy camped out on my sled. Got so cold, I duct taped emergency blanket around me. But on these trees, it snowed the day before, or that morning. So it was melting throughout the day, and then when I got up here, it created all these, you know, chunks of ice. So the wind was whipping right around the lookout there. And so even all the way over here, the wind would blow that ice off those trees, and it would come down and like rain down on the emergency blanket just all night long. So I got like zero sleep.
How much condensation in that emergency blanket?
Probably none, because it was so cold.
Yeah.
It was just, everything was freezing. So yeah, I don't think there was any, from what I recall. But then
You're like, I wasn't generating any heat at all.
yeah, then I grabbed my crampons, I strapped on the crampons, I had my harness. Very, very carefully went along this edge. I mean, the snow was probably 10 feet deep at least.
Can you put this trekking pole on my side?
I'll just hold it.
That's sweet. Don't be afraid to use them. So don't be afraid to use them.
I don't need to. But, yeah, this is all. I mean, it was pretty gnarly coming up here. This was a straight snow drop off. And this whole thing is just a giant snowball, all the way up to the top of this.
I was thinking fire and ice.
Yeah.
Fire and ice. Because like
So
there's fires and it's literally snowing.
yeah, so the snow was covering this whole mound. This was completely covered. And then this was like death if you fell this way. Pretty much death if you fell down that way either. I don't know how many days I've hung out, or nights I've come out here to shoot, but I would bet it's probably over a dozen.
Just here.
Just here. Probably, it might be like 15 or 20 even.
Definitely knows this Crater Lake.
What was funny about that night when I came up here right before they closed for the pandemic, this was again a big snowball, but it was pretty warm up here. And this was just like snow straight down. And I saw tracks going down the snow, and I thought, did somebody fall off of this? And I think what happened was, I think somebody with ice axe and crampons came up that way from the south side of the rim. They just came up this face so that they could ski or snowboard. But I was like a little terrified when I first saw the tracks, because I was like, where's the person? Did somebody fall? Are they dead? And they came up like the steepest point, so they must have had it. There's a photographer out of Bend who does a lot of extreme skiing, snowboarding, photography, and it could have been him and his group. They might have come up here and done some videoing or something. But it was like one set of tracks that came straight up this. I'm like, that's gnarly, because it's just like straight snow, and I mean that's a steep pitch.
Yeah.
I'd be worried about an avalanche there, especially since it's a southern exposure. And then the lights too was shot exactly where you're standing.
Really?
Yep, it was shot right here.
So the Milky Way rise is perfect from right here?
So if you look at the picture, if you look at the lights too, here, I can show you. There was, so you can see this rock right here is this rock right here.
Oh, let's get it in there.
So if you come over here, that's that rock right there in the corner.
The one that's always caught my eye is a little red.
Yeah, it got a little red because I had my intervalometer going and I didn't have a tape marking over my red light on the intervalometer. So it was casting, because these foreground exposures were 2.5 minutes long. So But yeah, I shot it right here. And it was 10 frames total. It was 2 rows of 5 and then 5. So the foreground exposures were actually 5 minutes each because this was shot with a Rebel SL1 crop sensor, people. My best-selling picture. $700 setup total with the lens. And because I was using a Rokinon 16 f2 lens. And so since it was a Rebel, I had long exposure noise reduction turned on for all the foreground exposures, which meant each exposure was 5 minutes. So I had 25 minutes in the foreground, and then I only had like 2 minutes in the sky. And then I had to blend those in Photoshop.
Sweet.
But yeah, it was crazy. But I was here. Andrew Studer was up here. Morteza Safetage was up here. They followed me up here. I got up here way before them because they didn't have snowshoes. And so they were trying to follow my tracks up. And it got to a point halfway up the Watchman where I lost them. And I was just like, I'm not waiting for them because I had to be to work the next day. So I'm like, I'm getting up here, I'll get my shot, and then I got to hike back all the way back. They didn't have any place to be. So I was like, at that point, it became every man for himself. And I shot the lights one, which actually I've test printed it once. But the reason, and technically that was the picture that initially went viral. And I shot that up here. While I was waiting for them to show up, I shot that banner from up here. And so I had Newman and everything in it. And it went all the way. It was like a almost 180-degree pan out. But what happened was, I think I did 2 rows, and when I got to this lower corner of Wizard Island, I must have bumped the camera. So the foreground on a corner of Wizard Island was blurry, which is why I never sold that picture.
Mm-hmm.
I still...
I have a few panos where there's a few blurry shots in there.
Yeah, there's a part of me that wants to print like 10 of them big and just have them be a limited release of like the original lights. Because people are like, why is that called the Lights 2? It's because the Lights 2 is what actually, or Lights 1 is what actually I called it the Lights. And it went viral, but I had stitched it together real quick. But then when Morteza and Andrew got up here, I went over to that spot and I did it right. Because I was like, I need the long foreground. And so I had 27 minutes into the Lights 2. And as soon as I finished shooting it, I hiked back. I finished shooting at 4 a.m. It took 2 hours to get back. And I was so tired. I was walking along West Rim Road because West Rim Road was actually plowed. This was in March, but it was a drought year. So the road was actually plowed. There was patches of ice on it. And somewhere down here on the road, I remember I was so tired that I just stopped and laid down in the middle of the road and closed my eyes for like a couple minutes. And then I got back and just kept walking, but I kept walking with my eyes closed because I was so tired and I had to still get to my car, drive back to Medford, take a shower and go to my day job at 9 a.m. And I remember I kept walking with my eyes closed because I was like, well, if I hit a snowbank, I know I'm like verging off the road. It was pretty epic. So, because I came up for the auroras that night. So I got up here at like 10 o'clock at night and then I left here at 6 a.m. And then went home, showered, tinted windows. On my lunch break, I went home. I processed the lights, or I started stitching it while I was on my lunch break, but it was taking forever to process. And so actually, when I got home from work at 5, I looked at my computer and I was like, oh my gosh. And I uploaded it and the thing reached like 500,000 people in a week. It was awesome. So
Legendary, dude.
it's the picture that established like everything. So that's why I freaking love the Watchman.
Heck yeah.
So
yeah,
this never gets old up here except when you almost freeze to death. That's the exception to the rules when you almost freeze to death because you're standing up here, 30-mile-an-hour winds hitting you in the face, and it's 15 to 30 below Fahrenheit. And the one thing that you forgot was goggles.
Yeah. It's funny how like the cameras are all metal construction, and they got plastic, and people were complaining at the plastic, and at the same time the plastic doesn't get nearly as cold, which leads to longer battery life.
Well, what happened when I was up here that night that I almost froze to death was I was shooting my pano, and my pano had some aluminum, and it was so cold that when I tightened the screw, it froze. So I had to unscrew it, and I kept taking my gloves off because it was the only way I could get traction. And so when I left that particular night, the wind stopped once the sun rose, of course, after almost freezing to death, and me taking my gloves off because the wind was hitting me in the face. And I shortened my exposure time. I was normally shooting like 30-second exposures, and I shortened to 25 seconds. And I had to brace the camera because I didn't think any exposure was going to not be blurry. And through every single exposure, I was counting the seconds out loud just to pass the time and stay focused because it was so miserable. And I did that for about an hour and a half. And I went down behind the lookout that night. I hunkered down. I was just exhausted. And then I go to hike back in the morning. It's not windy. It's nice and sunny. And I realized I forgot sunscreen. And so I'm stripping layers off. So when I got home from that trip, I had frost nip on my fingertips, literal frost nip on my fingertips, and everything that was exposed otherwise was sunburn.
Gosh.
It was gnarly. And I didn't come back up to Crater Lake after that trip. I didn't come back up here for 8 months because I was so like PTSD'd out from that experience. Next time I actually came up here was actually with Kate. So, and that was the first time Kay and I had actually come up to Crater Lake together. So it's funny how that worked out because I avoided this place for 8 months after that.
It's a legendary spot.
It is. Good and bad experiences. I mean, they've all turned out to be good because I never died. So there's that.
Crater Lake. Watchman Lookout Tower. Sir Matthew Newman.
Here, I'll show you the night that, let me see. I'll find the pano and show you the pano from the night that I nearly perished, and I'll also show you the pano from the night that I came up here before they closed the park for the pandemic. That was a really special night that night.
He's fast with it.
Let's go. So the night I almost perished up here, quite literally. This was the twilight that I got up here.
Holy crap, that looks epic.
Yeah, and then
Can you raise the exposure on that? Not really, no, it's fully up.
Yeah. But so this picture that morning actually got featured in an astronomy book for the chapter of the Milky Way lead.
It's kind of hard to see. There's so much reflection right now.
Yeah. And then
That one's awesome.
so this is, you can see my safety lines are hooked up to the lookout.
Okay, yeah.
And I was hanging on for dear life right up here while the wind was hitting me at 30 miles an hour. This was on the way out when I was coming up here. My spirits were still high. I thought it was still going to be a decent night. Zodiacal light coming up through the shot there.
On the left.
And my sled was behind my tripod because I was pulling the sled up.
It's perfect. You just plug in that photo.
And then
Plugging in photo.
and then 2020 here. It's from that. It was March. So this night was awesome.
It's gonna be cold.
Let's see. This night was so epic. So, look at this blue hour shot. I know you particularly like that one.
Yeah.
And then it was a little bit earlier when it was still astronomical darkness. That was part of a pano selfie I did. There's the pano selfie.
Nice. Yeah.
So I'm like anchored off here. I got a safety line connected to me. And then this was on the way out up here that night. Twilight shot. And then did I have some other? It's on the way out here.
That's nice.
So it was, I guess that was the same night. The night before. But yeah.
Good.
Moonlit shot. You can see the top of Wizard Island casting the shadow because the moon was rising.
Yeah.
It's pretty epic.
Hey.
Hey.
One hand is frozen.
I know. That happens a lot up here.
All right. That's Newman.